Hello everyone, and welcome back to Historically Inaccurate. Oftentimes history can feel pointless, but my job is to make it a little less that way. Today we are continuing our mini-series PsycHistory. We are going to be looking at some basic principles of psychology and tying them back to our history. Whether you're here for the history or the psychology, you're bound to learn something new. Today we are going to be talking about crowd psychology. Mostly when you think about crowds, the first thing that comes to mind is riots. Yet crowds can behave in many different ways, especially when faced with an emergency. The three most common responses are instinct, order, and anger. Crowds that respond instinctively are often characterized by three specific responses: fight, flight, or freeze. Other crowds respond orderly. These crowds will act calmly in a state of emergency. They also stand the best chance of surviving an emergency. And lastly, some crowds respond angrily. These are the kind that we call mobs and riots. Most members will be united in anger for a short time, often leading to violence. One of the biggest mysteries that surrounds riots is why they occur. Unfortunately, most psychologists either do not know or have varying theories. But we do understand that riots follow a snowball effect. Oftentimes riots start by one upset individual and exponentially increase until an entire mob is unified in one cause. This incredibly quick transformation is mainly possible because individuals can feel invisible in the midst of large groups of people and often trick themselves into believing that actions have no consequences. These individuals don't act as they normally would, often following what everyone else is doing, which can lead to violence and in countless examples has. Now back to the history. The Great Depression from 1929 to 1939 followed a very similar path as a huge riot. But before I can explain the Great Depression, we have to understand what caused it. Believe it or not, a mere 10 years before the Great Depression began, the American economy was booming. American wealth had reached an unprecedented level of expansion. This period was fittingly known as the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties was marked by extreme investment and a literal doubling of American wealth. Everyone in America, rich or poor, was gambling on the stock market. Americans were so wrapped up in the hubbub that stock prices soared. This may sound like a good thing, however, these prices soon became much higher than their actual value, setting up for one of the worst disasters in American history. Suddenly, the drunken happiness and prosperity came to an abrupt end. Investors had grown increasingly nervous as stock prices continued to inflate and had shown no sign of stopping. But on October 24, 1929, there was finally something to be worried about. Thursday, October 24th started like any other day. A local investor wakes up at 8:30 a.m., preparing to make his journey to Wall Street. His name is Roberto. He ties his tie and dresses himself just like any other day, but today is different. Today he's going to sell up all of his stock. Stock market prices have been climbing and he thinks now is the time to sell. He climbs into his Ford Model A, which he has worked very hard to earn through his investments. He makes his way to Wall Street and enters the building at precisely 9:30 a.m. When he arrives, something is clearly wrong. Everyone is selling. The previous day, while Roberto was spending time at the tavern, he had heard that many investors had decided to sell the day before, hence what sparked his plan to sell. But he had no idea how many investors had the same idea. Roberto catches a glimpse of the pricing board. Everything is down. His fortune is gone. He turns. Everyone is going crazy, even more so than normal. Roberto falls to his knees and screams at the ceiling, being very loud and dramatic. He took theater in high school. The stock market crash in October 1929 probably started with panicked investors, but it soon morphed into widespread panic throughout all of Wall Street. The panic quickly collapsed into widespread company failure and eventually to what we now call the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a, depressing time in our history. After the stock market crash, companies had a hard time getting along and they began laying off mass quantities of employees. The unemployment rate skyrocketed and banks began failing left and right. By 1933, America's unemployed population had reached about 15 million. Something had to change and quick, or else America's economy could completely fail. Now, how do we stop panic crowds like the ones from the Great Depression? By looking into modern methods that police forces use to suppress riots, we found that most suppression methods can be grouped into three types: to intimidate, to inform, or to assure. These methods work because of a lack of actual allegiance that riots experience. Although riots can be very closely allied for a short period of time, they tend to dissipate as soon as things get scary or when people lose interest in the cause. Generally though, the best way to get rid of panic is assuring and informing those affected of the potential consequences of their actions. Roosevelt's New Deal is a great example of how to effectively defuse a panic situation. During the election of 1932, one issue was on the minds of all Americans: the Great Depression. The two main candidates at the time were Hoover and Roosevelt. Both were working towards a solution to the Great Depression. However, Hoover lost the election because people wanted a new president with different ideas about how to solve the economic crisis, which is exactly what Roosevelt promised the people with his mysterious New Deal. Roosevelt's New Deal was essentially a plan to construct massive public works all over the country in an attempt to lower unemployment rate, while also improving the quality of life. Once Roosevelt was elected, he implemented his New Deal. The New Deal, and Roosevelt, also known as FDR, did a great job of pulling America slowly out of the Depression. Although the second New Deal angered much of U.S. citizens as the government was abusing its power. Despite the turmoil that the second New Deal caused, the first did a lot of good for America. Before the New Deal, almost all of America was panicking over the Great Depression. However, the New Deal assured them a solution to the economic issues that they faced. The New Deal, along with FDR's fireside chats, diffused what had basically been a national riot and convinced much of the scared American population to put their trust back into banks and the government in general. Many people were unsure if the U.S. would ever be the same, but when they were told by Roosevelt that it would, it gave the people confidence to accept the new government programs. One of the most successful parts of Roosevelt's New Deal was the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC for short. During the Great Depression, the United States had a 25% unemployment rate, which is about 20% higher than what it is today. The CCC was established in 1933 as a way to employ more people and create better public works. And in a mere 9 years, the group planted over 3 billion trees and created trails and shelters in the parks of today. Most of the people who worked in the CCC were unskilled workers, World War I veterans, skilled foresters, Native Americans living on reservations. Some of the most beautiful and awe-inspiring public works in the U.S. were made possible by the CCC. Some of the most famous being Grand Canyon National Park and Great Smoky Mountain National Park. All in all, the New Deal, despite eventually abusing governmental powers, was able to stop nationwide panic and pull America out of total economic collapse. And that is all I have today on crowd science. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you will use this new knowledge of the past sometime in the future. My name is Professor Will, and this has been PsycHistory. P.S. This is a 2-part video, so see you in the next video, hopefully before the end of the year.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.